Hello and welcome to the British Dapper, and today we're talking about, do accessories make a difference? So today is a continuation and the final video in a series about a young man buying his first suit. So previously we talked about the attributes of a suit and the style. And also we talked about the shoes that might accompany that suit, which all comes together for that overall look. And the final video today is about, does accessories make a difference? And so we're talking about ties, pocket squares, and other little embellishments that can add to the overall look. So let's start off with ties and pocket squares. They pretty much go hand in hand, depending on your interpretation of what you feel comfortable with. I find that a tie is a great accessory to use, and it's very much a weapon in our arsenal, depending on the situation we find ourselves in, depends on the style of tie we might choose. So for example, if we're in an office environment or a very somber event, then maybe the tie will be very subtle, and whereas if we're in a more of a party atmosphere, then we might go with something a lot more brighter, a lot more colour to it, maybe a little bit more pattern in it. And so it really does add to the overall look, but also it gives you the opportunity to project a little bit of personality in the way that you dress with that tie. Equally, pocket squares have such a similar thing. If you are adverse to wearing a pocket square, I'd recommend you just use a simple white folded handkerchief in the pocket. And an ambassador fold is a great look. And it just breaks it up a little bit and gives you a little bit of colour or a little bit of contrast in the top pocket. But similarly, you could wear something like today, where I'm wearing a herringbone tie. It's not really garish, but it does stand out against the backdrop of the suit. And in this case, we're using a pocket square that complements the overall tone of the tie, but doesn't actually contrast too much to stand out excessively. And with that, we're wearing some Loke shoes. These are a Derby shoe, a little bit low key for a three-piece suit, but I think overall the look comes together really nicely. So this is an example of how you might wear accessories to complement a particular look or design. So let's dive in with the first example, and this is a grey suit, but you can see quite clearly in it there's a tie here with a very slight burgundy pattern to it, and this is a very small houndstooth pattern. So it's not really highly visible, it's not standing out that much. It blends quite well with the grey and the shirt in the background, but you'll notice the pocket square stands out a little bit more and it gives a bit more of a pop of colour. And this pocket square is used to draw the attention more than the tie. But it's just an example of how you could still dress in quite a formal setting by replacing that pocket square with a simple ambassador fold handkerchief, and you wouldn't have any issues at all with that grey charcoal suit and the burgundy in the tie, and the subtle pattern in the tie would go really well in most settings. Another look that we've gone for here is actually a pinstripe suit again, but we're using a navy tie with a subtle repeating pattern on it, and it draws in some gold hues and some orangey hues in the tie, but very subtle, very played down. And we're using a simple ambassador fold here, so you can see this is already a more of a business-like look, and I think it's quite a good look overall. So with this tie, obviously it has got a little bit more of a bolder pattern in it, and you can see some diamond shapes in there. But I think the important thing to consider is the actual shirt. And in this case, we've introduced a shirt with a slight stripe to it. and I think it's overall quite a good look. But you'll notice it's got an actual very simple knot to go with that. And I think the overall look is quite pleasing, and wear that with a navy suit or even a grey suit and I don't think you'd be far off the mark for that semi-formal business look. And we now come to something that's quite formal, very business orientated, and you'll notice this is a gold tie with a blue check on it. Lovely pattern tie, and it goes particularly well with this three-piece suit and an ambassador fold on the handkerchief. So it's quite a formal look in this case. Black shoes go particularly well, and in this case we're using some brogue shoes, and you can see how it all looks very formal. Here's another example of a tie, and again we've got that navy back note to it, a little bit of burgundy in it to give it a little bit of life in the pattern itself. Using a blue shirt as a backdrop here, and so this sort of look goes particularly well with a navy suit or even a grey suit if you want to wear it for that semi-formal occasion. And what about livening it up a little bit? Well, here we have a pattern tie. This is almost a paisley tie. It's actually bright red, but it's got a pattern on it, so that plays it down a little bit more. It actually is a very lovely tie, goes particularly well with a grey suit, and I would suggest that with a white shirt as a backdrop, I think you can't go wrong with this sort of colourful play, if you like, with a suit. And I think this is more of an informal, semi-formal suit wear, and it would go particularly well with blues as well. So in this case we're wearing a blue wool suit. So in this particular look we're using a cream and blue check tie, and it goes particularly well for that casual, more casual setting, but equally it would cross over into the more business look. And in this case we've used quite a colourful pocket square to lift it a little bit in its overall look. So what about that bold Bengal striped shirt? In this case we've used a blue Bengal striped shirt in the background, and we've used quite a loud gold tie with this look. But I think it goes particularly well with the dark navy suit, and I think it's quite a nice refreshing look with some golden tones in the actual pocket square there. A little bit brighter on this occasion, and we're using something that's sort of like a raspberry red with a pattern on it, a small motif, and you can see that this goes particularly well with that three-piece suit. A bit of a contrast here because the three-piece suit is quite business-like, but we've made it more informal by the use of this raspberry coloured tie. Picked up some of those raspberry notes in the pocket square along with some navies and some silvers, but also the shoes, we've used some burgundy coloured brogue shoes, and I think overall it's not a bad look for that semi-business formal look. So at certain times of the year you might choose a certain colour palette for your pocket square or for your tie, and this particular look is more geared towards an autumn colour palette. And you can see some reds, some browns, some burnt oranges in there, some creams coming through, and that is a really nice look for this time of the year. And here we have one with a repeating pattern in the tie, and I think this is a very subtle tie, but it goes particularly well for that business environment, and I think goes particularly well with that navy suit, having some of those blues in the actual tie, and the pocket square is very similar in colour. When it comes to these things, I think one of the best ways of choosing a pocket square for a tie is to pick out a minor colour in the tie and use that as the major colour in the pocket square, or vice versa. And I think with that you always get a common thread going through the overall look. So we're going for a plain tie on this occasion, and I think shouldn't underestimate plain colours. I think with a slightly striped shirt behind the tie itself, and I think it's a really good look, particularly nicely with the navy suit and a pair of black brogue shoes, and I think it's a really good overall look for the modern man in the business environment, and it doesn't look too stuffy. Having said that, what about this for a look? In this case, we're using a wine coloured tie. It has a motif on it, but the suit is a really quite a loud suit with that rope stripe going through it, and a really nice look overall. But again, this is more of a informal suit wear, and the shoes are quite played down. These are quite an Italian style shoe. You can see by the lacing that it's quite a fun look, so it wouldn't really be for the most formal of business settings or for anything along those lines. This is more that mid play area where we're wearing a suit where it's a family event or a function or something like that. But be careful with the colour scheme you use with this type of suit, because you can look very 1930s gangster style. And if you want to avoid that look, don't use bright reds. Try and avoid a white shirt with that. Maybe go for a wine or a burgundy coloured tie. And the shoes are something you need to be careful of as well. Black shoes go really well with this look, but I think with the burgundy shoes it lifts it a little bit and makes it a little bit more fun. So the only other thing I want to mention is the small accessories that you can add. For example, a boutonniere or a lapel pin. Those sort of things are great. They do add a little bit of personality to the overall look, especially if it's a pin badge that represents you or what you stand for. For example, charitable organisations or memberships for certain clubs. That's understandable. I would be careful with the badges that are very big badges. It tends to dominate the overall look, and I would only use one lapel badge if needed. The only exception to that is maybe if you have two associations. For example, in this country we have the Royal British Legion, and we also have other organisations, and so you might affiliate two next to each other on the lapel. Boutonnieres I find are a little bit overpowering for me, but back in the day people used to wear a flower in the lapel buttonhole, so it is from that we have the boutonniere, which is a slightly smaller version, and it nowadays tends to be more of a silk flower than a real flower, although some people still wear very small boutonnieres with fresh flowers. But the overall look I think is a case of lifting the area around the chest and face area, and the whole point of pocket squares and ties and boutonnieres, lapel badges, that sort of thing, is to draw the focus to the upper body and the focal point of the face. So it is all psychology, but it does work, and it's been tried and tested over hundreds of years, so it does actually work extremely well. And on that note, I just want to mention to you now about our Patreon group, and if you'd like to join that, I'll put a link down below, and for a small fee, the price of a coffee, you can have weekly videos, behind the scenes video footage, monthly meet and greets with myself, and question and answer sessions by a video. You also have overall access to a WhatsApp group, so you can chat with like-minded people about any ideas or concepts you have, or any advice you want from others, or just to post your daily wear or what you're intending to purchase in the near future, and have a general discussion. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe, then please feel free to do so. We have a Buy Me a Coffee page, so if you'd like to make a contribution to the channel, then please feel free to do so. We also love constructive comments, so if you'd like to make some, jot them down below. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. And if you've got a question you'd like to pose to us or you'd like an answer to, then why not jot it down? We'll try and answer your question for you. We also like ideas for future videos, so if you want to make a contribution and make a suggestion about future content, then please again jot it in the notes below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. The next video could be something that you've recommended or suggested. So until next time, take care.